So custom tools are a very, very powerful way to build out custom functionality into the bots, whether it's something as simple as updating contact information or going out and doing soft credit pulls for whatever the business may be. It's a very, very powerful tool to do just about anything you'd like to do. Now, there is some nuance with it, and especially with this update that we're working on right now, we should try to get rid of a lot of the nuance, or at least do the nuance for you. But I'm going to have a mini crash course here, 5-10 minutes on custom tools, and I'll try to be as brief as I can just to kind of go over best practices here. So I'm going to go over to the screen here, and I have this fresh one here, and I have, I'm going to create a new workflow from GoHighLevel here. And we're going to call this fill contact info. All right. And so when I come here and create a tool, I'm going to create a custom one here. When I name something, and I'll go over to the OpenAI docs too, and I'll try to make it as brief as I can. Anything that we do wants to be, should be lowercase, completely lowercase, no special characters, and it should, instead of spaces, have underlines, not like dashes or anything like that. So something like update contact would be improper. It would be more so update underscore contact, right? And if we go over to OpenAI's function calling docs here, you can even see their example of a function call or a tool, right? So this is just a very pretty way of building something like this, also with an API tool attached to it. So it's kind of fun, easy way to build code, right, in a pretty visual way, but this is really what you're building right here. So when it comes to like naming or parameter names, anything that we do, we don't want to get fancy with it. It's all just going to be lowercase, no spaces, no special characters, no emojis or anything. It's going to be lowercase and underline except for spaces, right? So update contact. OpenAI's example here is get underscore delivery underscore date, right? And then the description is very important here. The description, especially when we're feeding it to a logic-based computer, right? Like an AI is very, very smart, but it also needs direct, concise, and there needs to be no room for interpretation when we're describing things to it, right? It'd be like having a very new employee and it's their first day. When we tell them something, we can't leave any room to interpretation, especially when they're going to go do it day one. AI is no different than that. And I love this example that they have because this is very holistic. I'll copy this over so it's easier to read for you. And so when they're saying update delivery date or get delivery date, get underscore delivery date, they're saying get the delivery date for the customer's order. Call this whenever you need to know the delivery date. For example, when a customer asks, where is my package? So this is a great example because it leaves no room for interpretation of the AI. Because I want you to remember, this is just like a computer thinking, right? It's very logical, and sometimes the way that we describe things or the way that we talk may not be concise and it may not be clear. And I'll show you an example of that here in a second. But this says how, what, when, where, right? And a lot of times in the description, a lot of people don't maybe go into as much detail when they're building a custom tool or something like that of what this thing does, when to call it, and then they have problems with it being called. And you could always call to it in the prompt, like I have this one that I set up here and I said call the tool to do this. But if you want this to be more of an autonomous action, we always want to tell it when it should do this and how it should do it and what the tool does, right? Because I can give it something like update contact, and while that may seem intuitive to us as humans, to an AI, it's like I don't know what that means. Update contact, I don't know what that means. Like my contact, their contact, someone down the road's contact, create a contact, I don't know. So a good description for something like this is use this tool to update the user's contact information to remember for later. All right, and so I'm just telling the AI what this thing does. Use this tool to update the contact information. Why are we doing this? To remember for later. Call this function whenever the user tells you their name. All right. So we have our how, what, when, why. It's pretty. There's no room for interpretation with this. Is hey, look, every time the user tells us their name, update it because you need to remember it for later. So my biggest thing when building these, or even the description of the parameters, is no different. I always think, how do I leave no room for interpretation here? Like I could tell this to anyone and they would know exactly what I mean, and there's no room for interpretation. I'll show you this here an example. All right. And we all know the endpoint URL is going to be where we're sending this information. So we have an API wrapper built on the back of this. So let's do inbound webhook. All right, and we'll grab this here. Let me move this screen over here. Okay, and so we'll redo this here in a second. But now we need to add our parameters. So I see this done a bunch of ways, right? It's kind of a new thing, right? But going back to here to this example tool call from OpenAI, so we have the name of what we're doing and the description, right? So we know what the tool call name is, and the AI is understanding what the tool call does and when to do it. Now, with these things, it needs to know what to send, right? The properties or parameters here is the information that it needs to send. So example, this one, to get a delivery date, it needs an order ID, and to the AI, it doesn't know what an order ID is, right? So we just need to describe it to it and say, look, the customer's order ID. And that may seem, that may seem too intuitive, but like you have to remember you're talking to a logic-based computer here, and it's doing its best to interpret what you have, and you want to leave no room for interpretation outside of what you need, right? So I see a lot of people when they come in here for parameters, right? They'll do something like first name, like that. And we're building JSON here, and just to let you know, the output or the arguments is completely generated by AI. So the arguments as far as the parameter and the data that's associated with it, that's generated by AI. And so if you do something like this, or capital letters and things like that, sometimes the AI will generate some weird stuff because it's not in like proper JSON that it's used to, right? So a proper way to do this, it should be all lowercase, no spaces, underscores, right? So it would be first underscore name. You can see the example here for order underscore ID, right? Get underscore delivery underscore date. It all kind of ties back to this cadence here. So when we do a parameter here, and we do the unique name, we don't want capital letters, we don't want any special characters, we don't want emojis. We just want it as simple as possible, and we want it in proper JSON format so that the AI can output it in a meaningful way that we can track for consistency. So if you do something like first capital letter name like that, like I said, arguments are generated. So it may generate it like that, it may generate it like this, it may generate it like this. It's generated by the AI, and then if you go to like tie the parameter to something like an API or a GoHighLevel endpoint, it's not going to match, and you'll have tying the parameters issues in whatever endpoint you're doing. So the parameters should be like this, right? They should be all lowercase, underscore, what the information you're looking for, right? As simple as you can get it, right? So like if I was even looking at somebody's income, I wouldn't put contact, income. I would just make it really easy on myself and just put income, right? Or I wouldn't do opt out. That's not going to work. That'll break. The AI is not going to output that. I wouldn't do this either. I would do this. This is what the AI knows. It's outputting JSON. It's in JSON mode when it does a tool call. And this is proper JSON format. It's literally code, right? It's just an easy code builder is all the tool call is. And this is the proper format to do it. All right. So I know I spent a little time on that, but that'll triage 99% of problems you have when mapping custom tools. This is the proper format for it right here. No special characters, no uppercase, no emojis, nothing. Just simple raw text with underscores instead of spaces. And so when we describe a parameter, this is equally as important. So I would say the description is the most important part of any of this, of the tool call itself, of the parameters, because again, you want to leave no room to interpretation to the AI of what information it is extracting or generating to send as like what the data equals, right? So first name equals what. And you want to leave no room to interpretation. Again, you're talking to a logic-based computer here, and even though AI is very, very smart, it doesn't really understand, nuance or human language. So you have to be very, very exact with what you're looking for and the output that you're looking for, right? So a good example of this is opt out. Let's use opt out. I see some people say did contact opt out, which this is not terrible. This is not bad. But you're leaving a little room to interpretation here, and this is how. Is you're putting did contact opt out. Sometimes the AI may generate true, sometimes the true false, right? Sometimes it'll generate yes no, sometimes it'll be capital yes no. And if you're using this in like an if else workflow and you're looking for those words, it may cause issues in reliability, right? And so if I was doing something like a yes no, right, or a true false, this is how I would structure it. So I would say yes, no, yes or no, if the user opted out of what? Of SMS communication. Right? That leaves no room to interpretation for what I want it to generate to answer yes or no. That's kind of what I want. And what they're opting out of, which is SMS communication. And who opted out of it? The user. So it leaves no room to interpretation on something like an opt-out. So now every time this tool is called, I should get a consistent output of opt-out, either yes or no, and if they opted out of SMS communication, right? Sometimes I see something to the effect of like a send SMS, right? Where it's like want SMS. Or just like it's something like this, right? And again, this is not bad. It's a great start. When we're building these tools, especially if it's for clients, especially if we want something that's working consistently and we don't have to maintain it, the best way to do it here. And I'm telling you this, so this is a lot of knowledge here behind tool calls. I've been playing with it since day one. I've played with a lot of it, but this is kind of the nuance behind it. All right, so if I say send SMS, and I want true or false, I could say true or false. You can also use or, you don't have to use that, right? True or false. If the user wanted SMS communication, right? Something like that. So what format I want and for what condition, to put that out there. And so as simple as extracting information, like I have first name, it can be the first name of the user, right? That's pretty simple. There's no room for interpretation on that. You really can't interpret that any different. First name is equal to the first name of the user, right? And last name is equal to the last name of the user, right? Pretty easy. And let's extract some information here. So let's say gross, let's just say revenue, right? Again, simplify it. Simplify it, concise, leave no room for interpretation. Now, on some stuff like this, I'll see contacts revenue. And again, this is fine. However, you're leaving some room for interpretation on the format. So if you have a specific format, if you're sending this to, an MLS or an API where there's a specific format, it needs to be very, very exact. Again, this whole thing, the argument section is generated by AI, all of it. And so if we leave it up to interpretation there, it may send weird formats. So it may send, like on this one, it may send the daily revenue. It may send the weekly revenue. It may send monthly revenue, yearly revenue. It may send it in like full format like this, like 20K. It may send it in raw, like this. And so we don't want to leave any of that up to interpretation. So we want to say the annualized revenue of the user in raw number format, right? So the annualized revenue of the user, enroll number format there, no room to interpretation. So now I should get a consistent output every time for my parameter revenue. So I can map that to fields and things like that. Again, all lowercase, no spaces, no special characters. And then I'm being very, very exact, no room for interpretation on my parameters here. All right. And so I'll save these changes here. I'll add this to my assistant. All right. And I'll call this and map this and show this to you. And so I was going to leave this out to save some time, but I'll just add this in here. So my only prompt in here, right, is first name, last name, revenue, and extract it to the custom tool update contact. You don't have to do it, right? Especially if your description is done well enough. You don't have to call the tool specifically, but also for reliability's sake, to let the AI know there's no room for interpretation, you do this at this step. That's a good way to do it. So I'll call it and we'll take a look.
Hi, Jordan. How are you doing today? I wanted to quickly confirm your first name, last name, and your revenue details to make sure everything is up to date. Could you please provide those for me?
Yep. So my first name is Jordan, and that's spelled with an E, and my last name is Williams, and revenue is $5 million.
Thanks for confirming your details, Jordan. I've updated your information accordingly. Everything is all set now. If there's anything else you need, feel free to let me know.
Thank you. All right. So the tool has been called, supposedly, right, by the AI, with the information that it was asked for. And if I go here to this is my endpoint that was in the tool, right? So this is where I'm sending this information. This is where I'm doing this thing, right? I'm doing it here. This could be a lead connector. This could be a workflow. This could be a build ship endpoint. This can be any endpoint in the world, MLS, whatever it is, soft credit pool. That's where it's sending this information in the raw JSON format. So if I go here and I map my reference, you can see it was done here. And I could see, boom, first name, last name, revenue. Exactly how I asked for in the specific format, right? So first underscore name, last underscore name, revenue. This is the way, so this right here, this arguments is generated by the AI. And so in the format of JSON, we want to make sure that we follow JSON rules, which is the same thing. I'll say it again, completely lowercase, underscore instead of spaces, no special characters. And you will get a consistent output every time matching these. And you saw I put raw format for the number, right? So I didn't get a money symbol or anything right here. This is just how I want to map it right there. All right, so I have my arguments, and then I also have some things that I can link this to, right? Like contact ID. So here's how we'll map this reference. So I don't like this create and update contact thing. I more so prefer the find contact because I can use something specific. If I'm using phone number and you have like multiple, if you have multiple contacts and stuff on, it makes it very, very difficult. Contact ID is the like unique ID, right, of the actual person who's on the phone. If I look up contact ID, it should be right there. All right, so I'm going to find this contact by the contact ID, and then I'm going to, so I've got my webhook that's triggered with my data, and it's coming to high level. It's like, okay, who is this for? Oh, we know it's for contact 1234. Like that's the specific contact we're on the phone with right now, right? And it's like, okay, great. Now what? Let's update contact field. And so on this one, we could take the first name and tie it to, under arguments, the first name, right? Take the last name and tie it to arguments, the last name. And I don't think I have revenue in here, so maybe we can use something else. Let's just use business name for revenue, right? So as easy as that. So on our tool call, I won't go through that again because I'm already running over. I wanted this to be 5 minutes, but I wanted to go over everything exactly. We have our inbound with all of our data, right? We're finding who we're doing this for, and then we're saving those parameters to the GoHighLevel contact field. This can be custom fields, this could be native fields, it could be whatever. This is chat and voice. And remember this formatting, JSON formatting. All right. You will get a consistent output every single time. And now I could publish that and I could save it. I'm going to go find my contact right here and let's do a little test run. All right, so let's do a couple tests just to kind of show you. So everything is set up. Let's go in here and let's do a few tests. So I'm going to call the AI's number here, 470.
Hello, this is Jordan Debs. How can I assist you today?
Hey, I just wanted to update my contact information.
Sure, I can help with that. Could you please provide your first name, last name, and your revenue?
Yep, it's going to be Haley, last name Dubs, and then the revenue is 300,000.
I've updated your first name to Haley and your last name to Dubs. All set. Your contact information has been updated with your first name as Haley, last name as Dubs, and revenue as 300,000. If there's anything else you need, feel free to let me know.
All right, let's do a couple more.
Hi, Haley. I hope you're doing well today. Could you please confirm your last name and let me know your annual revenue?
Well, my name is actually Jordan, and my last name is Dubs, Dubs, and revenue is 5 million.
Thanks for updating your information with me, Jordan. I've noted your revenue as well. Thank you. If there's anything else you need, feel free to let me know.
So we have Jordan Dubs, 5 million. All right, let's do a couple more.
Hello, Jordan. How are you doing today?
Doing well.
Great to hear. Could you please confirm your last name and your annual revenue? I want to make sure I have the most up-to-date information.
Yeah, my last name is Williams, and my revenue is 10,000 a month.
Thanks for confirming your last name as Williams and your annual revenue is $120,000. I've updated your information. If there's anything else you need, feel free to let me know.
See, that's even like I was very specific in the tool call of my annualized revenue, right? So if you set them up like this, there are custom tools here, right? You get really consistent outputs that are done autonomously, that you get the data that's mappable anywhere. Remember, be very descriptive, leave no room for interpretation, be very exact on when, where, what, how, when, right? Use the tool to do this for this reason and do it when this happens, right? That's a good cadence to keep there. And then always on the name and the parameter name, all lowercase, underscores instead of spaces, no special characters or emojis. Very, very simple plain text, right? And then a parameter description is the same thing as the tool description. Leave no room for interpretation on the data that you need. The first name of the user, right? The last name of the user. Revenue, the annualized revenue in raw number format, right? Opt out, yes or no, or yes, line no is the user opting out of so and so information, yada yada yada, right? Being very, very exact with what we want out of this tool call, you get very, very consistent output, and this works both chat and voice. So hopefully that's helpful. A little longer than I wanted it to be, but there's your comprehensive crash course on custom tools.